Hey, what's going on, nerds? This is Lee Rowley, and you're back for another Throwdown Thursday on Market Like a Nerd. So today, I kind of whiffed until about 15 minutes before this live stream and just finally said, yeah, maybe I ought to figure out what the heck I'm going to talk about today. Uh, so I did what any responsible person would do. I Googled copywriting news. And so lo and behold, I found that Forbes, in all of their infinite wisdom, has created an article that they have titled 14 Copywriting Trends That Really Work or Don't, according to communications experts. All right, so what I think we will do today is we're going to put this little article to the test, and I'm just going to share my thoughts on these things because I've scanned through it fairly briefly, and several of the points I have noticed over the past 6 to 12 months in what's working in terms of copywriting online and what's not really working so well anymore. So before I go any farther, I am going to attempt to pop this link to the article in the comments. So that y'all can follow along. I found it very interesting, and before I get into this article, I'm waiting on my thing to do its thing. Because hello, LaFay, how are you today? All right, I went ahead and put the link in the comments, so if you all want to follow along, then feel free to do so. So 14 copywriting trends that really work or don't, according to communications experts. First thing they've got out of the gate here is this: short form poetry on social. I've seen this. I've actually seen a significant rise in the last couple of months, actually, in terms of long, sparse posts. In terms, I'm thinking, sometimes one sentence paragraphs, sometimes they're even sentence fragments. It is kind of written more like poetry than it is a traditional prose. Now, so far, I've seen this being more popular with the younger 25 or so crowd, but it is seem to be gaining a foothold, and so it might be worth something is checking out because especially on LinkedIn, as accustomed as we've become to having everything delivered via video, this text-based format's taking hold. And so it might at least be worth testing out in terms of bringing a more casual conversational side to your copy. And so in some verticals it'll work, and some I'm sure that would not fly. It's good to take a look at that and at least acknowledge that's going to become a more important thing going forward. Number two, they've said that focusing on the customer's pain points. I'm not really sure why we got away from that. That's what we've been doing since pretty much the beginning of recorded human history. It's you can't tell people why they need something unless they know why they need it, and sometimes bringing them to that awareness requires making them aware of their pain points, their frustrations, the things that they lack, the things that they have not been able to do or have in their lives because they haven't had your product or service or coaching program or whatever it is. But they're saying that that's important, and it always has been important. It's absolutely still important that you focus on the pain points. And that doesn't necessarily mean you just spend 3/4 of a sales letter just drilling down into those things. That's kind of going away. And in fact, I'm finding that we as copywriters and marketers are constantly having to find more creative ways of touching pain points without setting off those those marketer alarms, because digging into it too deeply tends to raise people's defenses, especially since they've seen those same tactics over and over again. So number 3 on these, focus on educational content. Absolutely. I don't really think that there's a whole lot of differentiation these days between content and copy, because all of it ultimately should move your prospective client or customer along the buying journey. Every piece of content that you put out there sells in its own way, whether that's educating, whether it's building trust, whether it's raising awareness about your product, whether it's giving them just free value to get a quick win in their life. It's all ultimately selling in one way or another. So educating people along the way, as Forbes has rightly said here, is becoming a more powerful way to sell than just the traditional pushy sales copy that a lot of the internet marketers are still using. The next up, number 4, they said conversational copywriting. Again, in a lot of niches, there's always going to be those corporate stodgy niches where you're not going to be able to get away with as much of this. But to the extent that you can, you want to integrate conversational copywriting, write like you would write to a friend, and that obviously means you need to know something about them, because you don't want to talk to everybody the same way. I've heard copywriting coaches and gurus for decades say that you have to write copy on a 6th grade reading level. That is absolutely not true. You write on a 6th grade reading level if your target audience is used to reading and speaking on a 6th grade reading level. If you try to talk to an astrophysicist that way, it's probably not going to go so well. So things like that, that copywriting gurus say is an absolute, it really isn't. And part of your conversational copywriting is just being aware of who you're talking to and how they want the messaging to come across, what they need to hear to be able to take the next step. Fusion of copy and design. Again, we're going through Forbes' list of 14 copywriting trends that really work or don't, according to communications experts. And I've put the link in the comments if you want to access the article either now or during the replay. So a fusion of copy and design is becoming an absolute must in today's marketing world. One can't do the job itself. I know it hasn't been that long ago that I've heard somebody say, all you need is a good sales page. If you get a good sales copy, then everything else is great. No, that's not correct. You can take the best sales copy in the world and you can put it on a horrendous looking page, and it will not sell. If you put it in front of the wrong audience, it will not sell. If you put it in front of the right audience at the wrong time, it will not sell. All of those elements, your copy, your design, your timing, your knowledge of your audience, have to fuse together to create one coherent, cohesive message that builds trust in your ideal buyer and makes them want to work with you. Somewhere in the middle, they stuck in number 6, clickbait headlines. Don't write clickbait, they say. It's not just annoying. Humans are psychologically hardwired to feel negatively about your brand when they experience cognitive dissonance in association with it. In other words, it makes you sound like a D-bag. Okay, don't do it. All right? That's all we got to say about that. Quick, digestible, cross-platform content. Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about this in one of the meetings earlier this week about how 1-minute content, video content is really gaining traction across channels just because it's so quickly digestible. I've put out a series of those for educational purposes, and one of the comments that I remember most clearly was that, yeah, I'm going to listen to every single one because you could probably say something intelligent in 1 minute. Okay, cool. So shorter paragraphs is the next thing. Number 8 on their list is that they're saying that shorter paragraphs are going to work better than longer paragraphs. This is, again, something that, from my perspective, I didn't realize was news. People don't read big blocks of text anymore. So if you've got paragraphs that are 5, 6, 7 sentences long, this isn't a novel. People need to keep it to 1 to 2, 3 sentences max per paragraph. And obviously online, single sentence paragraphs are okay. I know my college English teacher would probably be rolling in her grave if she saw some of the things that I put out there, because those things they don't make sense from a traditional prose perspective, but from a marketing perspective, they absolutely do, because people are so busy and being inundated with so much information that it has to be visually set up for them to pick out the relevant points that they need to know, again, to take the next step in the journey. More humor, they say. Let me go ahead and read this paragraph. Once Wendy's lit up Twitter with a firestorm of crack-wise tweets, brands jumped on the bandwagon and followed suit, but it's not for every demographic and brand, blah, blah, blah. So if you're funny, use humor. If you're not funny, don't use humor. Check. Voice optimized content. Ooh. This trend is here to stay. Customers will rely more and more on voice bots such as Alexa for both personal and professional tasks throughout the day. We must embrace this voice-first world and optimize our copy for voice searches, provide context to Q&A type, voice-based interactions, and create content that sounds natural and human when read aloud. That's actually a very good point, and I'm not a tech guy, so I can't really speak to the AI side of it. But I can tell you that my copy will convert better if I've read it aloud before I put it out there. And so that's an exercise that I do every single time. And that's for sales pages, opt-in pages, blog posts. I write it, I set it aside, I come back, I read it aloud, and that allows me to pick out certain things in the cadence, in the rhythm, in which parts I emphasize and which parts I de-emphasize. That just makes you allows you to make subtle adjustments that keeps the reader flowing through the copy, because anything that distracts them from the copy, such as a paragraph that doesn't flow well into the next, a jarring transition like that, or a tone and style that changes suddenly and drastically in the middle of the piece. All of those things are going to bring them out of that sort of hypnotic state that you want them to go through as they're taking their next step in the journey, and minimize the distractions that bring them out. So I definitely would say that reading it out loud when you're done is absolutely critical. That gives you the chance to go back and refine, make it flow better so that people are staying focused on your message. Absolutely important. Writing for your audience's needs. This is another thing that I see coaches, freelancers, service providers get lost on all the time, is because they have so much information in their brains. They know so much about what they're doing that they lose sight of where the ideal client is coming from, what they know, what they don't know, what they need to hear to be able to make the next step. It's critical to sit down. And again, I've said this before, and I always recommend it, and I seriously doubt that hardly anybody ever does it because it's a lot of work. But before I start on copy, I will sit down and write a journal entry from the perspective of the person who's going to be reading that copy. And that allows me to really just get in their world and get in their head and just really immerse in what's going on in their world. Because when I can do that, it's a lot easier to know what to say to them if you can simulate that feeling. You can just get to know them that much better. And then when you speak to them, when you're creating your messaging, you're tapping into feelings and details and just sensory data that nobody else is. And that's really one of the things that makes the copy that we create works so much better than competitors' copy, because one, we know the persuasion triggers, we know how to format things and create that meld between the design and the copy to make it all work together. And it's just an absolutely critical thing to keep everything rolling in terms of making sales, in terms of building your business, in terms of getting people to trust you and come back over and over again and refer the people that are in their network to you. So slang and emoji use. As communication has become less formal, some brands forget their brand voice when trying to forget it with their audience. You're going to use slang or emojis. Make sure that the copywriter danger checks for any hidden second meanings that can apply to specific emojis. Okay. So if you do double entendres with your emojis, make sure it's intentional, I guess. No more marketing fluff. Copy that is too salesy will be dismissed quickly by consumers. Marketing copy needs to get straight to the point and not mention a lot of details that are unnecessary. To do that effectively, companies need to get to the emotional core behind why consumers need their product or service and how it will help them. Boom. Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to read that paragraph, because I don't think that I could have said it any better myself. That's exactly what people are looking for today. And too many of us are giving them the exact opposite of that. The next one on their list is, and this is actually the last one, is BS buzzwords. I didn't include industry jargon with that because, again, you don't want to confuse people. You want to make sure that you understand where they are when they're coming into the conversation, because if they don't know your industry terms, if they don't know the jargon, and that's what you're throwing at them, they're going to feel overwhelmed. They're going to feel confused, and confused minds do what? They always say no. So you want to make sure that you're eliminating that, or if you have to use industry speak or jargon, make sure that you explain those terms in the copy or content as you go along so that they're not feeling lost and intimidated. Cool. If you have any questions about this article, or you want to go into more details about one of these points, absolutely let me know in the comments. I'm going to go ahead and look here real quick. And I got to get better at this. I get to babbling and I don't look to see if there's anything going on in the comments. Nope, doesn't look like anything's going on, so I'm going to use that as my excuse to get the heck out of here. This is Lee Rowley with Market Like a Nerd. We will see you on the next Throwdown Thursday. Take care, nerds.